Let's get started. Hey everybody, and welcome to Hot Takes Live. This is a brand new show that we're trying out on the YouTube channel. It's kind of a combination of my previous scripted hot take videos, as well as the Ship Show podcast kind of long form thing that I do with my my pal Skada. Now Skada's here with us in the studio on voice. Skada, say hello to the people.
Hello, everybody.
All right. Hopefully this is take two. We had some technical difficulties the first time around. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Johnston, or perhaps even more appropriately, we're going to talk about GQ Johnny. So GQ Johnny is a clone of Johnston that's going to be available very soon in the World of Warships client through a long-running mission, which you can read a lot more about on the dev blog, and I'm sure World of Warships is going to put out an article on their website about it as well if they haven't already. We thought it'd be a good time to come back and review this ship and kind of talk through it. Kind of consider its aspects and then talk through, how we think it performs in the different categories. Now, if you've watched the Hot Take series before, you know a little bit about how this works. It's going to be a little bit different today because, again, I've got a conversation partner with Skada being here. We've got, on the far side of the screen there, we've got the Hot Take scorecard. This has categories for battleships, cruisers, destroyers. This is the same card I use for all of those classes. So it's got things on there like acoustics and radar, which are not going to come up for Johnston today. But we'll talk about all the other categories here. This is not a scientific, mathematical correct answer about what the rating is on any of these categories. It's slightly going to be based on performance as written and as coded, basically. And it's slightly going to be based on how the things feel. When we talk about the guns, we're going to talk about how effective they are. We might talk about DPM, those kinds of things. We're also going to talk about how they feel in practice and what it's like to actually play the ship. So if you go, oh, you guys said the guns were a 4, but I think they're an 8 or whatever, like, okay, we're just going to have some differences there. So be ready for that. And feel free to let me know in the comments below if you're watching this later on YouTube what you think and where you would kind of categorize the ship. Now the scale on this is 1 to 5. So 1 being this is absolutely awful. I hated using this. I didn't find it very effective. 5 being this is one of my favorite things to use, whether it's guns, torpedoes, the ASW capability, maneuverability, whatever. The categories we're going to hit today are, let me bring this over here so I can see it. We're going to talk about the guns, we're going to talk about the torpedoes, we're going to talk about general survivability and how that works out with this ship. We skip acoustics and radar because that's not equipped on this ship. We'll go through anti-aircraft, we'll talk about ASW, the maneuverability of the ship, how easy this boat is to play, how fun it is and how competitive it is. And generally what we're going to compare against are ships of the same class and tier. So we're not going to compare this against, the Manfred von Richthofen, but we will compare it against ships like, Fletcher or, Yu Yang or whatever, some other tier 9 destroyers. Skada, as you're thinking about Johnston, as you're thinking about GQ Johnny and kind of coming to this, is there a specific aspect of the ship that makes it more interesting than maybe other ships in its class just in general? Or do you just want to jump right into the categories and start working through that? Like, I guess what about Johnston makes it special?
I think Johnston came out, time of recording, we're doing this in July of 2025. And Johnston came out in 4th of July about a year ago in 2024. I think it was, some kind of, I don't think it was generally available based on like how often you see them. I think
Right.
It was like what boxes maybe are really expensive. So, coming back, as you mentioned this year, there's, going to be this long 6-patch long mission chain that gets you GQ Johnny, which is just a photocopy of Johnston with a unique camo, kind of getting that boat into circulation. I think in 2024 when it came out, it might have been a little bit more interesting than it might be now and moving forward. But it's got a like an F key funny button gimmick that gives you an auto loader, and
Right.
and that's probably what it's known for. It's in the world of Fletchers, it's definitely a gunboat Fletcher. And then it has, sap shells, right? And so I think when I think about Johnston, like what makes it made it unique, it was that it's the funny button and having sap, because I think at the time, one of the U.S. destroyers had sap that were out at then, I guess, just probably for a Sherman. I don't,
those would have been the two
you
at the
know,
time, right? Yeah.
you jump ahead to today, and obviously GQ Johnny's going to join the game at some point and probably be more prevalent because of how it's going to be distributed. But then you also, in this current time, we're in the first month of early access for a new U.S. destroyer split, and those all have HE and SAP as their only ammo types, right? So the
Yeah.
uniqueness of the SAP probably is going to diminish over the next few months as far as USDDs with SAP goes. But anyway, that's what I think of. Like if you're just looking, for the back of the box on the Johnston, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, do you want a Fletcher with SAP and a funny button? Are
Yeah.
you interested in historical ships?
I was
We
just going to bring
here
that up.
here you
Yeah, go
go.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, she's historical too, which you hit on, and at the beginning of the hot take kind of takes when we would do the scripted ones in the past, it was always kind of well, what makes this special? What's she gonna cost you? How are you gonna get her? And I think GQ Johnny's the interesting one to talk about on the cost spectrum. You mentioned that there's this the long running. Event that's coming up. You should be able to unlock GQ Johnny for free. Details on that are kind of loosely out right now in the dev blog, but I think we'll get more detail as we get closer to that event going live. So I showed GQ Johnny on the screen a minute ago. It's kind of the battle damaged version of Johnston. And GQ is an acronym for General Quarters, which is what they call out on a ship when they're going into battle stations, to action stations, right? So General Quarters, everybody man your battle stations, or something like that gets shouted. And so that's the kind of the nickname for the ship, and that's why that special version's coming out and why it has the rust and the battle damage and stuff on it. So I think with that kind of stuff established and out there, we'll dive into taking a look at it. So like I said, we'll hit those categories and we'll walk through it. This will be slightly opinion based, slightly factual based, and it's just going to be kind of a discussion. When we talk about the guns, we sort of, I won't say spoiled it, but we sort of kind of introduced the concept of what makes the guns on this special. So these are 127 millimeter guns, the same as you'd expect on any U.S. destroyer. I think the ballistics, in my experience, feel similar. I played the boat a few times last night to remind myself of how it plays. The HE and SAP are the two types of shells you have, so you lose your AP. That's okay, I think, for Johnston, because I want to keep the HE because American HE is decent, and I like the additional penetration that you get from the SAP. So with the SAP, you're going to be able to penetrate, it looks like 36 millimeters of armor, and so for a lot of ships, that's going to get you through bows, that's going to get you through decks, that's going to get you through any superstructure in the game. So you have plenty of penetration there on the SAP shells, and then on your HE shells, that 21 millimeters of pen. Now I'm giving you numbers from my captain. You could probably do some stuff to tweak HE pen. I can't remember if you can get an IFHE on a destroyer or not right now, but and then do you want to tell us a little bit about the burst fire? Excuse me, the burst fire, because that's unique for Johnston. No other ship has this kind of burst fire.
Yeah, when this came out, it was kind of kind of weird in that we started getting all these F key gimmicks, and I don't know if they started in 2023 or 2024, but the burst fire on this ship gives you this seven, at least on my ship, is built 7.9 second reload with a 1.23 second interval between individual shots, and you get 3 bursts.
Right.
And it's really the only burst fire that you just leave on. There really isn't a reason why you turn it off outside of just like, well, I'm just like augering shells into a mountain or something, or I don't for whatever reason, like I need to turn it off. But
Yeah.
the DPM on the ship is just better with the burst fire on, and every other thing, if you think of like Condé or Annapolis that has this kind of burst fire, it's more like salvo burst, and then you've got like a long reload. On this, the difference between the normal base reload versus the burst fire and the amount of shells you put out, it's just better to leave it on. So that's just kind of how you play it, and because the ship is more gunboat oriented with that SAP, it allows you to catch destroyer targets specifically and just pepper the bejesus out of them, right? I mean, it's big alpha with that, and it makes it pretty lethal when you get into a close quarters fight with one of these.
Yeah, and when we think of that burst fire, a lot of people might be familiar with Bazan. You could get Alvaro de Bazan, which is a Spanish tier 10 destroyer for coal, so it's readily available. I don't know that it's the most popular ship out there, but if you're familiar with Bazan, Bazan has the opposite situation where it loses DPM when you put the burst fire on, and Johnston gains it, and as does GQ Johnny. Again, same ship. And so, you know, like what you're saying, you basically leave it on all the time, and that allows you to do kind of a it kind of gives you a chance to kind of come up for air a little bit between salvos, because you kind of do this boom, 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 you know, 3-burst salvo, and then you can kind of swivel your head around and look around and make sure you kind of got your situational awareness good, or good and up or whatever. Go check your mini map and then come back and you're ready for another salvo, because that reload time in between is only 7.5 seconds in my build, 1.17 seconds with the interval between. I think, you know, your numbers can be a little bit different depending on how you built the ship, but like you said, it's just better to leave it on almost all the time. I can't think of very many scenarios where I'd want to switch back to standard fire, unless, no, I genuinely can't, unless I think I'm about to die after this next salvo, so I might switch it back, and because maybe I get one more salvo, but that's so situational. I think the burst fire just stays on, and again, I think it's a good thing. I think this is a strength of the ship that makes it more capable of, you know, messing up destroyers. Like last night I played it, I came across a Shimakaze, and I unloaded into him. I missed probably a chunk of the first salvo, but after that we kind of zeroed it in and, you know, did a chunk of damage to him, and the dude ran away, as a Shimakaze captain is wont to do. But um, the gunfight went my way, I think, just as a result of having this burst fire. And I only saw him for a second, so I was able to, or maybe for 3 to 5 seconds, which was enough to get all 3 of those salvos out. So I find that to be a nice strength of this ship. We talked about the sap shells and the HE shells. I don't know if there's anything else, and maybe ballistics or velocity. Like I said, I feel like this plays exactly like any other U.S. destroyer. I can't imagine that your opinion is different there, but maybe it is. So I should give you some room to have that. But in terms of ballistics and the gun handling, the shell handling, any concerns there?
It's the same as pretty much all of the Fletchers. Fletcher itself has slightly better vertical dispersion by 1 meter. Black has the same as Johnston, and then like Velos and some of the other ones are like 1 meter, even further worse. The only one that has a drastically different vertical dispersion is Halford, of all things. So
oh yeah,
like,
I'm looking at that now.
Yeah, and so like for the most part though, if you're playing this and if you've played Fletcher or Chungmu, the shells are going to feel the same. You know, they're not fast moving shells. They work fine in the kind of ranges that you're going to be using it. But if you're trying to like build for longer range on this, if that's what you do with your Fletcher, like trying to HE farm at like 14 or 15 or whatever you can build out to, you're going to be, you know, high arcers, right? Like they're slow moving, slow falling, arcing shells at those ranges. They're not, you know, it's not Russian railguns on here.
Yeah. Wixatron, who's a member of the Discord as well as here in chat with us, says, hot take, you can range find in normal mode, and then when you've got it dialed in, turn the F key on. I think if you're shooting at a small target at range and you're not afraid of losing that target, or if you're working on especially like maybe a battleship that's behind an island or something, and you're going to try to arc over and get a fire on them or something, that's a strategy that could work for you for sure. Just to hit some basic stats, the AP shells, where is it? Where? What? Why do I not have? Oh, it's because there's no AP shells. Damn it. The HE shells. Sorry, I'm like, why is this not in the list? The HE shells have a 5% fire chance. Very standard U.S. destroyer fire chance. Christopher, because it has those bigger guns, that new destroyer that just came out, 8% fire chance. But every other Tier 9 American destroyer, 5% fire chance. So you're gonna be very familiar with that. 21 millimeters a pen, as we mentioned, at 12 kilometers. And yeah, very similar ballistics with a maximum of 1,800 damage. If we look at sap shell equipped destroyers, again, it's the only one there now, paired with Christopher, the new U.S. destroyer that's just now coming out. 2,500 maximum damage out of the 127s there, 36 millimeters a pen, with a ricochet angle of starting at 65 and being guaranteed at 75 degrees. So just to throw those numbers out there for anybody who's kind of more of a numbers person. I think I want to throw out a number for main batteries, Scott. I think I would probably call these a 4. I don't think these are the best main battery guns at tier 9, but I think they're better than kind of a humdrum 3 or an average 3. I don't know, kind of where was that sitting in your spectrum if you're looking at a 1 through 5 on these?
Yeah, if you're comparing them to the other Fletchers or USDDs at tier or in similar tier ranges, I was actually kind of comparing this more with the new tier 8 Osborne, which is kind of more of a Fletcher, but it has
Mm,
less guns than
yeah.
Johnny. I don't know. I think because of the sap and because of the F key, I'm like a 4.5 kind of guy on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is really pretty strong. The F key lets you do some fun things too. If you're just trying to like just like with any reload boost ship, you can work on a larger target like a destroyer or a battleship with the HE, trying to get like a superstructure fire and then wait for him to damacon and then switch to the F key and just try to get fires back for long-term burns. That kind of stuff's nice to have. And I kind of have to link the way the F key works into the guns rating. So for me, it's like a 4.5, like in that ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, and when you think about the breadth of destroy, I mean, when you sit down and you look for a tier 9 DD to hit battle on, right? You're looking at all of these other DDs as well, and there's some strong ones that are out there. Um, Things like Friesland if you're a guns guy, right? Or ZF6 if you're lucky enough to have that. Um, Velos, So there's a bunch of great gunboats that are at this tier, and then there's weird stuff like Adriatico or Lambros Catsonis, which are decent gunboats. But yeah, I could see it being slightly above a 4.
Yeah.
I think we'll zero it in at a 4
I
here
mean,
and
I
let
just put in
chat
a
fight
little
us.
bit, just in general, and it's if you're it's hard when you're doing this mechanic. It's
Hmm.
just in its own, the guns, if the guns are this right, like because what is a 5 at this tier, like Mogador, like those
Probably,
guns,
yeah.
like probably, or maybe well, we're not going to say trash canned, but it's
It'd be for
those
me.
kind
It'd
of
be like
easier,
yeah, Mogador ZF6, those kinds of boats.
yeah, easier to range stuff.
Yeah.
So but I do think these are um taken as they are like I'm comfortable with that 4. I think that's probably pretty safe.
Yeah, and I forgot to hit the guns button and bring up the pictures. Look, I brought pictures. So we're gonna leave these
Oh
up there
yeah,
for
there's
just
guns.
just a second. I'm sitting here, we're just chatting away.
Hey.
It's funny because somebody in the chat said tier 9's a rough tier. Snow Mongoose said tier 9's a rough tier for destroyers. And as I'm looking over this, there's not a lot of boats where I would say their guns are better. When you said, hey, what is a 4? I was like, well, I don't know. Let's look at the list. It's Kitakaze, it's Friesland Groningen, probably ZF6. You said Mogador's a great pick. Um, I'd like for there to be a Soviet DD in here that has really strong guns, but excuse me. I mean, Tashkent's okay. Some people like it. I'm more of an Udaloy guy, but um, and then yeah, Lambros Katsonis is kind of okay. It's got those big 140s, but there's not a lot
Yeah,
of boats that are higher. So I think 4 is pretty safe.
people
It's a good
people
pick.
don't like Katsonis because of how it like shaped and stuff. I
And the
like Katsonis for
torpedoes
what it
and
is, but
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, just when you're looking through and it's just in a vacuum, like these guns, if I took this gun platform and I put it on like a different hull, right? Something that
Yeah.
I thought was like a
Yeah.
level 5 hull, would it make that like the best tier 9 ship? And I think it would. These are pretty spicy with
Yeah.
this setup. In chat, I think it was Wix made a comment about like, well, the burst fire lets you let you angle to this guy, right? And then he's sunk, right? And that's fair
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's sap, and that's the one thing you can try to do with sap is angle to it. But boy howdy, like watching, when you played with it last night, because of other things we're going to get to rating wise that the ship brings to the table, when you get somebody like you did a Shima broadside to you and you just rip into him with that, I mean, you took like half his health like in
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
exchange and left him pretty broken for the rest, beaten up for the rest of the match. You took other gunfights in that one. I think at the end of that match was the one where you dumpstered like 2 destroyers, like
Yes.
just about in
Yeah.
uh, uh, double kill
It
situation
was
there, right?
almost
So
almost got a double kill. Not quite fast
yeah,
enough.
so I don't know, but yeah, guns
Yeah, I think
pretty
the
good.
guns were good. I think uh the thing that I think we can think about too is if you're playing against a Johnston, and I don't want to beat up guns forever, we should move on. But if you're playing against a Johnston, that reload period, if you understand what that is, 7-8 seconds, somewhere in that window, depending on their build, that tells you when you need to be maneuvering, right? Because you'll see those come in, you'll need to swing around, and then you can do something stupid for about 7 or 8 seconds. Open up your broadside a little bit, get a shot off, and then get turned again so that you can try to dance and avoid the shells. You're going to get hit, you're going to get some damage probably if the Johnston has any hope or any sense whatsoever, any aiming skill at all. But there is a window of time where you can be a little bit safer. But it's not very long, and that's a strength for Johnston. It's just really, I don't know. I like the guns on it. I think these are it's a strong 4. Like, I think your 4.5 might be better, but we don't do 0.5s on this. But I think 4 is a pretty strong, or the guns are a pretty strong rating here. Want to jump into torpedoes? Let's do that. I'm gonna hit this button before I forget. And now we got torpedo pictures up there. I'll have you kick off the torps. I think I started with guns, so go for it.
Like a lot of Fletchers, Johnston has the dual 5 torpedo racks, so it can deploy 10 torpedoes. Johnston has 13.5 kilometer torps that go 66 knots. They are similar in speed to the base Fletcher, but lower damage and longer range. I don't know, I don't know if they really share these torps in the exact same format, anything in that line, right? Like Fletchers are shorter range, more damage. Halfords are the same range but more damage. So they're kind of a unique tweak on the American torpedoes. The downside on this, and we were talking about the gun so much, right? Well, out of all the Fletchers, right, the torpedo DPM on Johnston is relatively low, right? So like Black's is high, Fletcher's is over 100,000, Velos is almost 100,000, Chungmu is up there in the 90s, and Johnston's is in the 60s, and a lot of that has to do with the reload. The torpedo reload is punitively long, if I remember correctly. It's like, what's the
I can grab it
base
here.
reload on it? It's
in my build, it's 153 seconds, and I
and
might have something that makes that better. I don't know.
Yeah, and as built, like, I'm not running any torpedo stuff, right? You're running gun stuff on this ship.
It's 170 seconds base.
Yeah, so they're not bad, and they've got great range for tier 9. But they're not as, I mean, they're powerful. They're not like Jaeger torps, but they're not
they hit.
They're not the most powerful and stuff. So they're kind of, I'm just going to jump to my number on them, which is probably a 3. Yeah. Because you've got good range and average speed.
Kind of average low almost.
Yeah. And that's just, they're not what brings you to this. If you get GQ Johnny or you have Johnston and you built it for torpedoes, I would question why you'd have it.
It's not a torpedo boat. I mean, I think you've all but said it, basically. The DPM's is low, and that's due to that really long reload. And what are you going to do when you're bored waiting for the reload? Well, you're going to learn how good the guns are, and then you're just not going to focus on the torpedoes. You should use them, though, right? Like, if you have the torpedoes and they're loaded, you should put them out. It's a 13.5 kilometer range, as you said. I think if you didn't, I did. 17,900 damage base. You should put them and deploy them, but you'd probably be best off to spend things like captain points and buy upgrades that support your gun build, because that's really what she's about. Even though she's got the torpedoes, I would let them be relatively stock and just use them. Now, apparently I did something to improve my torpedo DPM because mine is a little bit lower. Yeah, I'm borrowing a captain where I have some torpedo things on here. Maybe it's my gearing captain or something, which is a little more torpedo focused. So you could build a specialized captain just for Johnston, tilling into the guns. But I agree. I think this is a 3, and I think it's going to be hard to convince us. They could be a 2, except for the range is good and the damage is fine. So they're not a 2. I think it's a 3.
Yeah. That for me, that's why, right? Like the speed of them is not epic, and the reload is not great, but the range is pretty good. There's plenty of tier 9s that have come out in the last few years that have, anywhere between 8 and 12 kilometer torpedoes, and everybody's like, ugh, like Like I really want to use the torpedo, even some of the torpedo boat type things, like like a La Pampa or something like that in the tier range, where they give you a bunch of torpedoes, but the range isn't this good,
Yeah.
and you have to be inside of a bunch of radar range possibilities to use them. So 13 and a half is pretty good for that. It's just that you don't have them all the time, and they're not super fast, and they don't do massive damage, but they're not like
Yeah.
European torpedoes, right? They do decent damage. So
Yeah, they're reliable, usable. So, and again, I think that puts them squarely in that 3 category, right?
yeah.
Um, we talk about survivability for this boat. Jumping into our next category, so survivability and concealment. When we talk, or at least when I talk about how boats stay alive in World of Warships, I tend to think that there's a few different ways they do it. They have either lots of hit points or a hull repair. They have speed, so they can avoid incoming. It's like avoidance, recovery, and just tanking, right? These are the 3 ways that your ships can stay alive. So avoidance is things like smoke, concealment. Tanking is just having a lot of hit points and or being able to, I guess that maybe that's getting into recovery territory, but tanking and recovery might just be one. But like having a lot of hit points or being able to recover hit points from taking damage. So this is definitely an avoidance strategy. You're going to use your smoke. You're going to use your stealth to decide when you want to be spotted. And more or less, you can do that with this boat. 5.8 kilometer conceal when you're fully built for it. And that allows you to kind of and take your gun engagements and then quiet your guns and go dark. Your gun range can be built up if you want it to be, but because the ballistics aren't so great, I have mine running at 12.5 kilometers, and that gun range being shorter also helps me stay unspotted if I want to. If I'm going to try to farm out somebody who's at 10 kilometers from me and they're almost dead, and he's got a friend at 14 kilometers from me, if I can hurry up and finish and kill that guy, then the 14-kilometer guy can't see me anymore because my gun range is short enough that I can stay stealthy. You got good American smoke on this. In my build, the smoke lasts, it puffs for 33 seconds. I'm sorry, hang on, action rate is disperses in 127 seconds. Yeah, 33 seconds action time, 7 seconds of dispersion time. So you've got plenty of smoke. You can do a lot of smoke farming as long as you got somebody who's being your eyeballs outside the smoke. So what 5.8 is not is it's not the stealthiest of DDs, but it's sub 6, and that really starts to be kind of a good neighborhood, I think. Survivability. How's the hit points, Skada? How's the survivability? I guess there maybe I want to throw it to you and get some of your thoughts on this. I can find those too.
I have that right in front of me when you ask that. Of course.
Here it is. 21,750 in my build, and I think the base is 17,100.
17. Yeah, it's 17.1, which is the same as every tier 9 Fletcher.
So I've got captain and signal on there, which is what's pushing that up as high as it is.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, like we talk about this a lot. When I think about destroyer survivability, it's like a 3-legged stool of speed, hit point / heal. And smoke, right? Like, and speed's kind of speed maneuverability combo, right? And so like when I get a new destroyer to play that's like, in this tier range, if it doesn't have like 2 of those things, I feel like it's a bad time. And there's plenty that only have like 1 of those things, and I just, the way I play or like the situations I put myself in, it makes it less fun for me. I don't want a big slow DD that doesn't handle well, that doesn't have smoke, but has a heal. Like, okay, well that's cool, but or like I don't want a fast DD that has smoke but 10,000 hit points. Like, I'm gonna get caught out eventually. So it's kind of those combinations of things. I think this has a really good set of those things. Sub 6 concealment is kind of like where I want to be. It's got American smoke, or it has original style American smoke, I will say. So take that or leave it. It's long form smoke that hangs out for a long time. Cool for your teammates in some situations, bad for everybody in other situations. I actually kind of prefer like the Pan Asian in Germany kind of smokes, where maybe it doesn't last as long, but it doesn't take as long to come back. But I think the smoke on this lets you farm in today's game. If you get a chance to sit and farm for a really long time, inside this thing's gun range, then I don't know. I don't know what game you're playing. It doesn't feel that works out that often to me anymore.
It's hard to use all 2 minutes of that smoke, right?
It's just a lot of time for that
Yeah.
smoke, right? So,
Yeah.
but it's good smoke, and it has good concealment. The ship has pretty decent base speed. It's not, French fast. But base speed's like in like 38, I think. It also has the option of a speed boost with an 8% speed boost. That's pretty great. And so in that regard, I think it's pretty good. Fletchers in themselves are not massively large targets.
Right.
So, and the rudder's relatively fine. So you can, get yourself out of trouble by dodging, turning, going faster, going slower, and doing that kind of stuff. So I think all in all, like, it has enough of the tools. The only thing you're not getting here is like, 30,000 hit points or like a monster heal or some of the things that you see on some newer or different weird destroyers. It has a pretty normal hit point pool, but, over 20 is yours is built is nothing to be complaining about. So, for me, again, I'm going to throw out my number now. I think my survivability number on this is like a 4.
I think, yeah, I was thinking of 4 too. I'm looking around at the list of DDs and I'm like, what's a 5 at this tier? And maybe it's like Tashkent, which has, for me, because I kind of like that. I'm not a big Tashkent fan, but it's got the speed, it's got the hit points, it's got the heal. But even then, is it a 5? I don't know. Maybe it's Jaeger because it's invisible and no one's ever seen one. We've only heard about the Bigfoot, right? Like
Right.
what is the 5? I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel like this book quite rates the 5. I think it is a 4. I think it's a strong 4 though, because like you
Yeah,
said,
I
it's got
mean,
all the tools you want.
something like if I had, at least as far as survivability, not talking the other things, but maybe like if you ask me, like if I had to look at
Just survivability. Yeah.
like, what has the best survivability at this tier, maybe Nustrashimi,
Yeah, actually, Nustra is pretty good.
because it's
Nustra's a
got
great choice. I missed that one in the list.
Nustra's got that stupid lower concealment than this thing does. It has a zombie heal. It has good hit points, and it has smoke.
Yeah, and maybe something like Ostergotland would be like, maybe it's still a 4, but it's got the heal. It doesn't have the smoke though.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't. I really like.
It's probably not
I think of a 3-legged stool of like, for me,
I'm
it's
with
like
you.
speed, hit points and healing and smoking stuff. So like, at least in these Skada takes, it would be like Nustra would be there.
Skada
I'm not saying
takes.
that's a better boat.
No,
I'm
I
just saying
understand.
on
I
this
understand.
one topic, if you wanted, just because you're asking me, what's the best tier 9 for survivability? For me, it's that.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be something like Jutland or the Somme, or
Those are
something that
really
has a
good.
heal and has smoke and has stupid good concealment.
Yeah.
Those aren't as fast, but I know you like faster gunboats, right? And so
It's
like,
more
yeah,
my
like,
speed. Yeah.
I mean, I think Mogador has really good survivability because of the French gimmick
The
of being able to
saturation.
soak damage and saturate it, and it goes 5,000 knots and has good range to stay out of, it can dodge stuff. And those are all things that go into the calculation as well. So.
And you mentioned Jutland and Somme. Another thing Wixatron brings up in the chat is that it's also got hydro, right? And that's a good point, right? Because hydro is part of your survivability toolkit.
Yeah.
We can think of hydro as an offensive tool, but it's definitely a defensive tool as well. And then GMAC mentions Udaloy. Udaloy is pretty good. I wish it was a little faster, but yes, Udaloy's got smoke. It's got a lot of hit points and it's got a heal. It doesn't have, I mean, its speed is not bad, but it's big.
Its base conceal is where it isn't as good to me compared to, again,
but
when you're looking at those things.
Yeah.
Nushishimi to me is like the god king of that stuff. It's not great at these other categories.
But we're isolating, right, on purpose to just one category.
Isolating.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I plugged in a 4 for us there on that one. So far, Johnston's looking pretty good, right? If you're staying north of 3, you're doing good work. No acoustics, no radar on this one, but we can talk about anti-aircraft guns. Let me bring up the picture of AA. Now, Johnston is an American destroyer, and a lot of American destroyers have the option to swap out their speed boost for a defensive AA fire. I call it a turbo AA, but you could swap it out for def AA should you wish it. And I think that I think a lot of people don't do it. There's always that one person who's like, "Oh, I've been using Def AA on my U.S. destroyers forever. Def AA Nicholas forever, Def AA Farragut or whatever." It's like, okay, I still use the speed boost because I'm kind of a speed junkie. I always want to go fast, but Speaking about AA for it, AA is a weird topic to talk about on these, and I've talked about how it's challenging. There's a website out there called shiptool.st. If you just sort by AA strength, which is a number I think that they made up, which is kind of, I think they
No,
made
that's
it up.
like that's the number in the client, isn't it? Because like, or no,
Does it
maybe
actually
it's
match
not.
that number? Maybe it does. It says 23 here. What does it say in the client?
It's 23
It says like
for
60
Johnston.
for mine,
Okay,
which is
yeah, that
crazy.
must be a number they just made
So,
up then. I don't know what their math is on that.
usually they have a page that explains it. I should probably go read what it is. But if you sort by their
Yeah.
number, they're at 23. It puts Johnston at 13th out of like 34 destroyers. So it must be pretty decent. If we take a look at just to throw some numbers out there for the numbers minded among you, your long range DPS is 74 damage per second, medium's 112, and short is 50. If we look at the best rated AA strength, it's 284 DPS in medium range from Friesland. They don't have, and then they have 147 in long range, but no, excuse me, no short range DPS. And long and medium range, when you think about AA, long range AA lets the carrier know, hey, I'm here and I'm starting to damage your planes right now. Medium range AA is going to do damage to planes that are probably that are looking to strike you, and short range AA is only going to hit planes that have already basically struck you, right? And so when we think about that, the more you have on the long range side, the more you're going to maybe dissuade a carrier captain. But the better that carrier captain is, the less they're going to worry about that because they're going to have set up a good flight already. If we look at Johnston, and maybe I don't need to wax that poetic about AA, but it's got a total, if you add it all up, of about 225 DPS at its closest range. And I actually don't know if short range adds to the medium and adds to the long when you're inside that inner circle, or if it just changes and they're donuts on the outside. That's actually a good question. But these numbers are fine, but not amazing. You're not going to stop yourself from getting struck. If you have the turbo AA on there, though, you might take down a few more planes. And when it comes to like position on the scoreboard and getting base XP and things like that, airplanes are worth a lot. So you'll get something for doing that. What'll be interesting is when we see these new aircraft carrier changes coming in, and this is not a video about that per se, but when we see those new aircraft carrier changes coming in, will things like Def AA on a destroyer be more viable and be a better choice when the carrier can't spot for themselves and so they have to do some scouting or whatever? Will that even make a difference? I don't know if I think it's going to be a big deal, but I could see there being a small shift in AA in the game. But I mean, it's hard for me to call this AA really great or really bad. It's kind of on the upper half of medium in the AA category. So if I was throwing a number out there on this one, I'd just call it a 3, and I'd tip my hat and say, good day to you, sir. I don't know. What do you think about AA for Johnston, Scott?
Yeah.
Or
Like
do you think about AA
it's just a
for
3.
Johnston?
Like I
Like,
wouldn't.
it's
I
so
mean,
weird.
the only Fletcher that I've ever played with Def AA on was Kid, because Kid's better at
Yeah.
AA in general than all the other ones, and so I remember for a while I would run like an AA build on that. But yeah, it's a 3 at best. I mean, I look at stuff like how many flak puffs do they put out if it's a
Oh yeah.
like a
If you're using
destroyer,
them.
and it's like a 3+1, which is good. That's
Yeah.
the best chance you're going to have at actually knocking any planes down, is if the guy flies through a flak puff, because your AA damage is not enough to really do anything at tier to stop
Right.
planes from coming. So like, as far as like destroyer AA goes at tier 9, if you're not Friesland, or I was going to even say Ostergotland, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not one of those boats that's specifically like known for AA, that has better AA stuff, you're probably like a 2 or a 3.
Right.
And I think
Right.
this falls in the 3 range, and then stuff like Paolo and Jaeger that have like no AA, that's like a 1 or a 2, right? So it's
Yeah.
it is what it is.
No, I think you're spot on there,
If you
and
get an
I
AA
won't
defense
belabor it too
rivet in
much.
this, it's probably has more to do with the carrier you were playing against, or carriers.
It would be a 2
Uh,
carrier game for sure.
yeah,
2 tier
than
8s or
the
whatever.
fact that these AA guns are just
I guess that's probably
no fly zones where
yeah,
no
yeah.
pilots dare go.
Yeah.
It's
No one's gonna say, "Oh my gosh, a
yeah.
Johnston, steer
Yeah,
clear." Like
if you're watching this video and you've played World of Warships, the AA is mediocre. It
Yeah.
is what it is.
That's
So
that's the nature. Again, I think it's better than some DDs. You'll see some aircraft get knocked down by it, but you're not gonna surprise. You won't be like, wow, the AA on this is it's just not gonna be special.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll call that a 3 and move along. For ASW, ASW is kind of one of those things, and in some of the way that wargaming has been working ASWs, it's been very formulaic, very predictable. There is some amount of kind of national flavor there, but not frankly a ton. If we want to take a look at depth charges here, so the Johnston has, let's see, they drop 12 depth charges. You can see in the animation I've got on the screen for you, there's some that pop off the side there. You got the aerial kind of flying off the side, and then there's a few that roll off the back of the ship as well. You can see them splashing into the back as I speak right now. So you'll have kind of a pattern that's a little bit wider and then right behind the ship. It's so hard to get on top of a destroyer, or I'm sorry, on top of a submarine with a destroyer that doesn't have hydros though. So I find these really challenging to use. It could be done, sure. They reload in 40 seconds, 2 attacks. I think that's pretty standard fare. There's nothing really exciting about there. 5,100 damage per depth charge. And if we come and take a look at the damage numbers, those are among the highest damaging depth charges that the game has. If you go and sort all the tier 9 destroyers by damage, it starts off Christopher, Fletcher, GQ, Johnny, Johnston, Black, Black B, Velos, Halford, Benham. So there's your American destroyers, all have the highest damaging depth charges. But again, the challenge really is just getting on board and actually landing the depth charges on the submarine. Every depth charge at tier 9 has an 800-meter radius. They all have, you know, pretty standard deployment patterns almost, right? Fire chances 21%, flood chances 43%. Those are the best at the tier. It's kind of hard to not say that maybe these are 5s, but the problem is I think the use on them is challenging. And so I'd look for something like Jutland, even though it has a little bit less damage, might be a little bit easier to hit with because you can use the hydros to approach the submarine safely or to even help you zero in on the submarine when you're getting there. ASW and depth charges are hard to have an exciting conversation about, Skada, as we've talked in the past. But that's my best effort. Is I like that there's high damage. I don't like that it's really hard to use them, but that's kind of the nature of depth charges in this game.
If you're trying to break down, at least just on the depth charge part, right? So when you're breaking down destroyer depth charges, there's a lot of stuff that's standard. 2 attacks, the time of reload on that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Every ship's the same.
All that's standard, right? The stuff where it's unique is damage, and then the flood chance and fire chances all roll up and down with that damage number, right? So they're just kind of linkage. There's kind of a linkage there, right?
Basically together.
And then the number of bombs, right? So if you're just looking at tier 9 destroyers at putting depth charges in the water, USDDs are the best. They do the most damage and they put out a lot of bombs, right? A lot of depth charges, right? So the very best at that, like is the new Christopher at tier 9. With its it does the most damage. It puts 16 bombs down. Interestingly, the Halford of all the Fletchers puts the most in, and also at 16. Then you go down to base Fletcher, GQ Johnny, Johnston. They put 12 bombs in, right? So but they're all these 5,100 damage bombs, right? And so that's really what you do. How many depth charges am I putting in the water? How hard are they hitting? And what's their flood and fire chance? Like, what are my best chances of knocking that sub out? So the US far and away the best at that, at this tier, right? And then there's some other, when you look at like the depth charge damage and the number of nations, there's other nations like the EU. People are always like, oh, well, like Ostergotland puts 16 bombs in. Yeah, but they only do 2,000 damage. The flood and fire chance low. And so the US is really the best at that. I think you bring up a good point that ASW is not just the ordnance.
Right.
Then it's also sensors and availability and the ability to track stuff. Even in my head, and I like to hunt subs when I play destroyers. I also like to think about, and this is kind of, for my own ASW rating, I'm thinking about like maneuverability stuff too.
Yes.
And so like, can I get over the guy to drop these, right? Well, if it's a U4501 and he's underwater, no, I'm not fast enough. So those kind of things come into play. Individual matchups, things, the submarines you encounter at tier, what chance do you have to get over the top of them? And of course, then a lot of stuff goes into play, like does the person actually know how to play submarines, and or are they a tourist, etc. But for me,
Right.
like the fact that if it's pound for pound, I put the boat in a position to deploy depth charges, and it was any of these tier 9 destroyers, these U.S. destroyers, Johnston, GQ Johnny included, are almost the top. Like they do the most damage. They put the most bombs in the water. The bombs they put in the water do the most damage. So for me, like I probably put this boat at like a 4.
Yeah.
I would probably put like the numbers that Christopher does damage wise, probably push it up a little bit. And then I do like to take into account like what you're talking about in regards to destroyers with hydros.
Mm-hmm.
But keeping in mind, like hydros again only pick up submarines inside like 2.
2 kilometers. Yep.
And I don't think at time of publishing we've gotten a destroyer with submarine surveillance yet.
Right. I don't think so
We've
either.
got cruisers with submarine surveillance. There's a battleship coming with submarine surveillance. Eventually, there will be destroyers. I had hoped the new USDDs would be some
That was
killers,
my dream. Yeah, I thought
but
that would have been cool.
they haven't done it yet. So
Yeah. Yeah, when you brought up maneuverability, I'm glad you did, because the speed and the ability to get to where the submarine is, because sometimes it's a glimpse. You get just a moment of seeing a submarine, and so you need to be able to track them and chase them. The hydros, you bring up when they're going to spot submarines. The other thing that's useful there too, though, is when they're going to spot torps that are coming at you. If the torps are coming at you from the submarine that you're pursuing, you need to see those to avoid them. Once you get within that short range where they start doing reduced damage, you feel a lot safer, and the submarine's kind of screwed. They need to go deep and get out of there. But by the time you're there, they're kind of out of luck. And so looking at that, GMX says, are there any 5s? I like your answer there. I won't repeat it for YouTube, but the looking for 5s. I mean, it might be something like, and people might dislike this because the damage is so low on it, but Z46, 2200 damage instead of 5100, but it's got really good hydros for torpedo avoidance, as well as chasing down the submarine itself. The speed boost is going to be good there. I don't know if Z46, I don't know if I'd call it a 5, but it's probably better for me when chasing submarines than these American DDs. And then, looking at Somme, Jutland up here, again, shorter range hydros, but long duration hydros, which might be good enough to get all up in the business of the destroyer, or of the submarine, excuse me, and have plenty of time to chase them, that kind of thing. So I might consider those destroyers, even though they have lesser damage. Although Jutland and Somme, 5,000 damage, spread across 12 bombs, which is Johnston, by the way, 5,100 damage, 12 bombs. Really close in terms of that power, but you also get the hydros with Jutland and Somme. So they might edge out Johnston and GQ Johnny for being better. Would I call him a 5 though? I don't know. I feel a little guilty calling any destroyer a 5, but there's got to be one of them has to be the best, right? And since if you're choosing to play a tier 9 destroyer, you're not choosing to not play a tier 9 destroyer, right? You're going to play something in that class and tier. So for me, it would probably be something with hydros like a Jutland, a Somme, or maybe a Z46. Skada, do you think is that too generous to those ships to call them a 5?
No.
What do you think?
Well, I wouldn't.
That's fair. I'm kind of curious your thoughts.
I think surface hydroacoustic search versus submarines is fool's gold, personally. But
it does.
I think you know where the submarine is because he's pinged, and you're hammering down at him. And at best, having hydros is going to help you dodge his torps. But you're probably close enough at that point. I think a lot of times when I fight submarines in caps, it's in caps, right? It's a closer interaction. One of the things I would also throw out there that ASW related, but that could really help, that gives Johnston, and I'm not going to say a 5, but maybe even a little shine on that 4. We go back to the guns. SAP annihilates submarines.
I was going to bring up guns too. This is good.
The autoloader gimmick. So if you force the interaction with the sub and you're putting 12 bombs in the water, 12 depth charges in the water, and that actually drills the sub to come up to periscope depth in that exchange, you're going to just yeet him with that SAP. Just you'll kill him real quick. So yeah,
this
I don't know.
category is ASW, and guns are a factor. I've used that on the previous scripted hot takes in the past too, where I've said, hey man, this thing, what was the oh shoot, I can't think of the name of it right now. The Hector. Hector has like 1,000 guns that shoot real fast. It's got hydros.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good at fighting submarines, but it has to fight them with its main battery, right? Which,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, man. That might actually put Johnston back up to where it's at least competitive with, or maybe
It's
better
just for
than
me, like
Jellicoe's on.
I just don't like trying to hunt subs with hydros is like meh. Like they only get picked up on your hydros if they're up on top of
On
the
the
water, right?
surface.
Like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so like at best it's helping me dodge torpedoes, but I'm probably seeing them coming in anyway because I'm already up in knife fighting range. In fact, I try to close on a sub not only to depth charge it, obviously, because I want to do that, but I also want to
Because
neuter
I
his
want to.
torpedo damage.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I want to
Yeah.
force that interaction inside of 3 so his torpedoes don't work. And then it's just like, well, okay, let's get this over with. And
If
a
you,
good sub
yeah.
player will go deep and run, right?
Yeah.
And it is what it is. But anyhow, I don't know. I like this boat on paper for ASW. I can't think of
But
the
I don't
last
like
time I played it.
ASW and
I
DD.
can't think of the last time I played it and I took an ASW fight. I have played a lot of
Yeah.
DDs recently and taken ASW fights, and I
Yeah.
think this would be fine at them. I think it'd be better than average, so that's why I'm at a 4.
I think it is a 4. And if you're looking for a level 5 rating for a destroyer, for me it's Blitzquake 44, which is a tier 8. That's my favorite destroyer to fight submarines in. We won't talk about it too much
Yeah,
because this is about this
yeah,
boat, but
I
it's
know
it's
I
good.
get why you're saying that, and I kind of agree.
It's
Like
fast hydros, good
until
guns, like it's
and for
awesome.
me, until they put a sub in or a destroyer in
Yeah, I hear you.
with the like air ASW and sub surveillance, I don't know if there is a 5.
Yeah, I won't fight you on that either. Like if again, I'll tell you what my favorite is, but like yeah, I'm waiting for that same destroyer that you're waiting for.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's my take. That's my take, Helmet.
and
And I think
that's
you're relying on surface search hydros way too much when you're fighting underwater targets. That's my take.
yeah, it's a challenging situation to get. Again, we're not going to find something that's right for everybody. Um, you got to compare it against the boats that exist, not the boats we wish to exist. Okay, so we're going to hide everything here, and now we're going to talk about maneuverability. So we've talked a little bit about this. It's come up a bit. In my build, the boat maxes out at 39.9 knots with an 8% speed boost. The rudder shift is decent because it's a destroyer, 3 seconds. It's actually really pretty good. And then the turning circle is 580 meters. I don't know. This boat handles like a Fletcher does. It feels like a Fletcher does. It drives around pretty well. And so it's a good. I think it's a good platform in terms of maneuverability. I would always take an extra knot or two. And in order to get to that 39.9, I'm running the speed boost signal, right? That's not base. If I flip that off on my boat, it drops down to 38. So you're getting an extra almost 2 knots for the 5% boost you get from the Sierra Mike signal. So yeah, she'll get around. She does okay. She's fast enough when you need her to be getting from point A to point B. And then, yeah, I think the rudder shift is fine. I didn't go compare it against other boats, but Scott, do you have any experiences with Johnston in terms of um, maneuverability that kind of shape your
Yeah, I mean
analysis of that?
it's pretty good on paper
Actually, rudder
for tier
shift is
9s,
best
right?
in class
Its
or best
rudder
in tier.
shifts, best at tier 9. Its acceleration is low to middle.
Hmm.
Its max speed is what, top 7, top 6, top 5.
Yeah, it's
it,
good.
Johnston and a bunch of those at 38 knots at a base speed put them just outside of the top 5. It has an 8% speed boost. That is a big help for that. It's not a short run speed boost. It's a 2-minute speed boost, and however you buff that
Right.
and such. I think on my Johnston, I actually run like a Cole speed boost module. So no, I think a lot of the maneuverability on it is pretty awesome. It's top 3, top 4 in turning radius. That's great. Harken back to the ASW conversation. The tighter you can turn around, the more you can do stuff there, right?
Right.
So I think it has pretty good maneuverability at tier, but I don't think that Fletcher's have that perception amongst the player base.
I agree.
Because I know, like, when I think about you talking about, like, oh yeah, this DD
Like
and that
fast
DD, right?
boats. Yeah.
You're talking about Russians and things that you like playing that are going to be faster and this, that, and the other, right? But on the paper, this boat is a very good example of of a high maneuverability tier 9 destroyer compared to a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
But for whatever reason, I don't think people feel that way about these boats.
34.
Just,
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And there's 34 destroyers at tier 9 that I've got on the list here. Sixth in terms of speed is where GQ Johnny and Johnston line up, right? So it goes Mogador, Paolo Emilio, Tashkent, Udaloy, Adriatico, and then Johnston, right? So that's fast. It's there. Now, the gap between number 1 and number 6 is about 4.5 knots. And then the next 4.5 knot gap, if we go all the way down here, in fact, there isn't another 4.5 knot gap. So the gap between number 1 and number 6 is bigger than the gap between number 6 and number 34. So it's kind of like this interesting slope. If you graphed that, like if you got really data nerd about it and graphed it, that top 6 is as much faster as the bottom one is from the number 6, which is crazy, but that speed is there. I mean, and the rudder shift being best in tier, when you're juking and dodging, that's going to actually be of pretty good value to you, because it's 3.0. The one thing, and then everybody else is 3.4 or higher. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that falls off the table there is how the acceleration affects all those things. And since the acceleration is so much lower, you know, if you're trying to, if you come off the throttle and you're turning and stuff, it's going to feel like that's when people go, oh, this boat doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you need to stay at flank speed. Just don't touch the speed. Just juke and dodge and stuff that way.
Take it easy on the rudder shift if you need to.
Yeah. If you come off the throttle, you're gonna feel it's gonna feel bad, because the acceleration on it is what makes that feel gross. When you're talking about like just straight out like straight line speed, it's fast. At 38 knots plus an 8% speed boost is great, but people are like, oh, it's not that fast. Well, yeah, okay. Like what are you comparing it to Mogador with its 20% speed boost and 43 knot base speed? Okay, yeah, you're right.
I mean, yeah,
so this really nice V8 Mustang is not as fast as that Lamborghini. You're right, or Bugatti. Or Bugatti's French. I don't remember.
Bugattis are French, yes.
Right. So like, yeah, that's not a fair comparison. But like, is this a better, straight line handling, like faster than Kia Spectra? Yeah. Like,
wow.
Is it, like, is it, like, is that what it's doing? Is that what it's doing? So I don't know. But I just think the acceleration is why the perceived, when you're playing Fletchers, when you're playing this ship, when you're playing Johnston, people aren't going to be like, man, that thing's a real smoke wagon. It really hauls butt, because you turn and slow down and then it takes forever to get back to speed. And that's when you get smashed by something. Yeah. Right. In that turn, slow down, all of a sudden you're not getting out of the way of shells like you wanted to, and you just get crushed. And then you go, man, this thing sucks. So I think that probably brings it down. I don't know personally if I could, on paper, a lot of it to me says 4, but perception of reality probably brings it lower than a 4 for me, but better than a 3.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious where you would actually slot it on your scale.
It's tough. I think I want to call it a 4, being more data driven than emotionally driven right now. And when I play it, I don't sit here and I go, man, this thing is slow. I do think that about boats that have a 36 knot top speed. I'm looking at you, Kitakaze, a boat I really like. I'm looking at you, the Black, USS Black, 35 knots. Oh my gosh. I know those boats are slow. I know, Smallland is slow until you hit the speed boost. And then I go, oh, okay, all better now. Right. But like this boat, I don't really think about the speed. It doesn't really, even though like I always say I always want to go faster, and Bowmasters teased me earlier saying, no, boats are never fast enough for you. I don't think about it because it's fine, right? It's okay.
Yeah. But the reality is it's actually better than fine.
But on paper, it's better than fine. It really is. Yeah. And you talked about that situation where a player is like, oh, if only I was, faster accelerating after I made that corner, I wouldn't have gotten smashed. Well, you also have smoke and 5.8 kilometer detection, and you got a lot of ways to not get spotted, man. Like,
But we're not talking about those categories.
Oh, no, it's true. We're not going
This
back.
is all individual. The real question is, you go through this and you total it up, but do the sum of the parts, because we're heading towards a number here that makes it seem like Johnston is the best thing ever. And I'm not sure that that's the case, but
I think Johnston is good, but I'm
not gonna like crank. I'm not gonna start like pulling my numbers down now to even it out. So it is
No,
what
no,
it is.
no, no. You and I've experienced. I like that you're coming to the same conclusion I did when I was making these videos. The thing about the hot take is it's a great format for talking about ships, but it's not necessarily as it's not scientific. It's not going to be like no, and so
Yeah,
this is the order you should buy the boats in. It's not that.
yeah.
It's really
And
an
it wasn't.
experience
It
for
was, and
viewers
it
and
was
for
more
us.
data driven when you were doing them like the way you did them before. And obviously, by injecting me into the mix, it's going to be. I am gonna talk about,
No, you
the
should.
feels on these things,
You
right?
totally
And I
should.
really think that that acceleration number is what brings the maneuverability feels down to earth on the
Hmm.
Fletchers,
Hmm.
because everything else about them on paper is like, hey, yeah, this is. Did you know? I mean, like you go through these numbers and people are, I can only imagine that people are thinking like, yeah, did you know it did these things? And I was like, no, it didn't.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think I'm gonna go 3 on it. My initial guess would have been 4, honestly. But I
We'll
think
put it at 4 then. It's your
well,
hot take.
yeah, we're talking about the way it feels. And as I said earlier, I have no emotions about how this boat maneuvers. So I think that makes it a 3. I think it is in fact a 3. I like it. All right. Is this easy to play?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, but I mean, like if you're talking about ease of play for me, is this the question? Do I think it's easy to play,
Yeah.
or is it easy to play for, you know,
Um,
John the Ruthless? I don't know. Like if
I
it's
mean,
just for
is it
me, like
for me? It's always been
yeah,
about the average player, right? For me, or
yeah.
people that are close to my skill level, right? Yeah.
I think easy to play. Yeah, it has good concealment, it has good smoke, it has usable gun DPM. I like American destroyers in this tier range because of those things about them. So yeah, for me, it's easy to play.
Yeah.
I probably have no notable statistics lodged in this boat. If you were to look me up, and I probably played this boat like 2 or 3 times where it's registered on
Yeah.
things, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's relatively easy to play. I don't think the gimmicks on it are complicated. I think
Right.
on some things there's a bigger learning curve. I do not believe there's a huge learning curve on this. I think if you've played other American DDs in the tier range, or any of the 400 Fletchers, then this feels like those things, with a gimmick that involves that gun thing. So yeah, for me, it's pretty easy to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's about being complicated or not. And that's usually something I would talk about in this section is like, hey, do you have to figure something out that explains to you how to play this boat? Right. Um, like, is it on the surface? Like, and the thing about Johnston is it is a Fletcher. Yeah, it's got weird, funky guns and a different kind of shell, but that doesn't really change what you do with it in a major way. And so, in order to understand this, the instructions are open box, play as Fletcher. Installation is reversive removal, right? It's not confusing to figure out like
Mhm.
what to do with this boat and to do it well. I think a player who's comfortable in those other boats can sit down and play this boat and have a good time with it and do good work, and learn to be good at it without much difficulty. Because it's easy does not mean it's not fun, and it doesn't mean that it's not um, powerful or capable or whatever. You can have really strong matches in this. Just because it's accessible doesn't mean that it's not those other things too. And so I guess we'll get into, is this fun to play here in the next category, but I think, yeah, it's a pretty straightforward boat, easy to play.
Mhm.
I don't know how to score that right now. It feels like it's been a while since I've done one of these. If that becomes like, no, it's so easy to play that it's a 5. I don't think it's that, because it doesn't just play the game for you. Like there's some boats where it's like Valparaiso is a great target right now, where it's just like, well, this boat you just hit W, and then every once in a while you hit heal, and then you're doing amazing damage and you're causing disruptions for the enemy team. You still have to like play as a destroyer, which is still hard. You still have to like stay unspotted and regulate that, and you still have to contest
Yeah.
caps, and you have to fight destroyers when you're going to be a high priority target. So I don't think it's like free 5s here, but it's probably a 4, I would say, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, this is a binary category. I know you grade this category. For me, it's just, is it easy to play? Yes or no? I mean, ultimately, if you go, okay, well, tier 9
Sort of how
destroyers,
easy maybe is the yeah.
what's easier to play at tier 9? Lower concealment
Yeah.
would make it easier to play, right?
Jaeger.
So,
Jaeger's really easy to
if it
play.
was an invisible ship
Phantom.
that just did dumb things all the time, it's fine. Because it's a gunboat, inherently, you have to engage and make yourself more than likely visible at different times in the game to actually play
Sure.
this, right? So I don't think it's a 5. But just generally, like, is it for me easy to play? Yes. So I'll let you score this because I don't have an opinion on a scale for
You're like,
this. It's just
no, I refuse. Yeah, that's all good. Yeah, I
yeah. I
think I'll
mean,
call it a 4 in terms
okay,
of
well, if you
like,
ask me for a number, my number's 3. That
yeah,
would be
no,
yes. It's easy to play.
I'm not razzing you too hard. At least I hope not. Uh, but yeah, I'll put it down as a 4 on this one, and we'll see how she goes. But yeah, like in terms of just what is she offering up? And again, destroyers in general are just kind of a challenge compared to something that's a little more resilient, and so that makes this a little bit interesting when you're thinking outside the class. But we don't have to today. Skada is the Johnston fun. Is it a fun boat?
Sure.
I agree.
I mean, it's yeah. Again, this is kind of a binary thing for me. I don't choose like if I don't play a ton of DD anymore. I don't play a ton of anything anymore. But if I was reaching for one of these tier 9 destroyers, am I going to reach for Johnston in my port or future state GQ Johnny over all the other stuff I have? I don't know. Probably not. I kind of tend to like torpedo boats more than gunboats,
Mhm.
unless they're like high speed gunboats where I can farm stuff at range. So
Yeah.
I do think this is fun to play. It could be more fun to play. And there's plenty that are less fun to play. So for me, again, it's like, yeah, it's a 3. It's like a 3 or whatever. It's fun to
Yeah.
play.
Yeah. I think it's a 3 as well. Largely because I've had this boat for a long time now, and you and I are kind of, we have to remember that there are players who don't have quite as deep a ports as we do. But
Mhm.
when we're sitting down to pick a DD, we have a lot of DDs to pick from across a lot of tiers. And so I've found that I have not said like, man, I can't wait to play Johnston again. It's so cool. I can't wait. It's my favorite boat ever. Whereas with, our new Pan Asian dockyard destroyer that I can't remember the name of right now, Lucian, which I played like 70 games in that like immediately because I love that boat so much. It's also
Right.
not very complicated to play, but like I really wanted to play Lucian all the time. Whereas Johnston, I think I've got a handful of games, 5, 6 games maybe. And I was like, okay, cool. That doesn't mean Johnston's not bad or that Johnston's bad or that it's not fun, but I don't think it's so exceptionally unique and fun to play that I have to play it. And the World of Warships community loves to be like, oh, here comes another gimmick ship. But when this is kind of like a very low grade gimmick on this boat. And for me, that didn't make it unique enough that I just had to log in and play more games in Johnston.
Mhm.
Um,
I think quickly I'll jump to
yeah.
a part of this category there. Is this a fun or a competitive question or just a total question? But I always like when we talk about these things to just look at like played stats collected on
Oh, sure. Yeah.
WoW's numbers, right? So on the North American server, of which we main,
Our
on
home server.
tier 9 destroyers this morning, there's just shy of 39,000 games randoms logged on Johnston. There's another 818 logged on GQ Johnny for the, GQ Johnny wasn't made available last month in an expensive loot
Limited
box,
way.
not loot box,
Yeah.
limited way. Some
Yeah.
some people already have GQ Johnny. So if you combine those numbers, you're looking at just shy of about 40,000 total games played. That's relatively low, right? Whereas like Fletcher has 4.6 million games played. But again, Fletcher's been around for dang near 10 years now and is a tech tree boat. Um,
Yeah.
but if you compare it to something like Black, that for a long time was relatively hard to get, even though it's an older Fletcher clone, has radar, plays differently, not same as this, right? There's, half a million, more than half a million, 500,000 games logged in that on NA. So, take this with salt. Not a lot of people have Johnston. Came out a year ago. It was hard to get and it was expensive. It came out again last month in some bundles that you could get it. They might have put it in some boxes now. I don't know if it was Santa boxes last year. It may not have made the cut. I just don't remember.
Right.
But you look at stuff like availability for Johnston or GQ Johnny now. Going forward, if they make GQ Johnny a boat that everybody gets their hands on, do we think we'll see a huge uptick in these numbers for it? And I do, because I do think
Yeah.
it's fun to play
Yeah.
as more people have access to it.
No, I agree. I just sent you a link. So Ship Tool does this cool thing, and I think you know about it, where you can look at the ships played in the last 3 updates. So how many games, rather than looking at lifetime stats, right? You can go in here and you can put the different skill brackets and everything. So I got it wide open skill brackets. I'm looking at NA. I've got all the destroyers from all the countries in here, and I haven't found Johnston yet, but it's in the last 3 updates, it's had 1,092 players play it, and they've played a total of 6,592 battles. The number 1 ship, unsurprisingly, is Jaeger.
Yeah, I know which one it's going to be. God dang it.
Battles, followed by Kitakaze, 51,000 battles, right? So these are like long-term healthy, and then Fletcher, yeah,
and then Fletcher and Yugamo, right? And so, but look where Black is on that scale.
Number 6.
Another, and that's again utility and tools and what it can bring to the table. So,
I'll throw this in chat
good info, good information dump there. And if you add in GQ Johnny, it's it's also on this list at the bottom of 177 games played over that time frame, which actually is pretty prevalent considering 177 players and almost 1,200 games, right? So. Bunch of people, 177 people got that expensive thing on NA. There's probably more that got it that are co-op mains, and the numbers aren't showing up here. But
60 or 100 of those guys are probably CCs or whatever too. But yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, it's not getting a ton of games played. Sorry, go ahead. Oh, did I lose you?
Yeah.
Oh, I got you back.
Yeah, but anyway, it's fun. And I think that kind of mixes into the question a little bit of the next question as well. So, where do you think it lands? Where do you think it lands on fun? And then, let's segue into where do you think it lands on competitive?
Yeah, I think it's probably a 3 for fun. I think it's a fun boat. It's not exceptionally fun. It's right there in the middle. I think it's worth playing. And I think if you have one, log some battles in Johnston. I enjoyed playing it last night. I haven't played it in a while. And I had a good time doing it. So hopefully that number kind of resonates with others. It sounds like it's kind of right in there for you as well, which is kind of, it's okay. We should play it sometimes, all right. Competitive. Would you play Johnston in competitive? I don't think so. I don't think I would. I think you could, because you got smoke, and because it's a Fletcher, you've got reasonable concealment, you've got smoke, you could do it, right? So maybe you could, but I don't think this is going to be a strong competitive pick. Now, again, I'm not a competitive player, so grain of salt for sure.
Yeah, that's a hard one for me to answer because I don't play ranked, which is a place where you would have I'm sure like ranked has touched on tier 9 at some level in the recent history. Clan battles haven't done like a tier 9 season in a really long time. So when I think competitive, I think clan battles, and even if it was like a tier 9 choice, this is probably not a choice I would make. I think if you were oh, well, you want to play that or do you want to play Fletcher, you'd probably even better off just playing Fletcher just to be more middle of the road in regards to your hybrid capabilities. And those are, competitive has different things that you're looking for as far as if there was a ranked season where people had this and they played it. I don't know. I don't remember hearing about it. So I don't necessarily think it's something that's overtly competitive. I think a lot of times when you're talking about competitive destroyer play, you either want something with sensors, or you want something that has maybe torpedoes that's a little more hybrid, that has torpedoes that come back more.
That's the challenge with it.
And so for me, I wouldn't consider this competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone could make a case for, well, I'm going to use this to smoke up my light cruiser, and then I'll use my burst fire to help machine gun down destroyers. But the lack of torpedoes is, I think, the biggest problem. You can play boats like Gearing and things like that in at least mid-level clan battles and get away with it. I think Gearing's a strong pick still, even though she doesn't have sensors. I see some folks agreeing with you in the chat about, hey, you want hydros, you want radar or whatever. You could get away with Johnston, I think, but I think people are going to reach for something else. Z46 is here. You're going to have the Black, which has radar.
Jutland,
Velos even. Jutland would be great. Yeah, Som. So there's Chungmu is going to be a strong pick for competitive. People might not like the deep water torpedoes, but that with the radar, if you want that, or you could be a smoke bot.
I've played Black in some competitive capacity not too long ago, so there must have been a tier 9 season we played. I don't remember, but I remember using Black in that because of the radar and smoke bot stuff. But
yeah, it's totally doable.
But this not enough tools in the tool chest. The gimmick burn down button isn't probably going to be what I reach for when I'm trying to make a competitive selection, just for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, you know, if you guys are in the competitive scene, you're like, no, you're wrong. You didn't think about. Let us know in the chat or in the comments on YouTube, and we'll talk
Yeah,
about
let
it
us know in chat. Start your own channel and do your own videos, whatever. You know.
more. I mean, hey, it's all about conversation. I think I'm going to throw down a 2 on here because, again, I think you could do it at the lower levels of competitive and probably be fine. But I don't think you're going to see this in optimized builds in King of the Sea or similar if they ever do
Mhm.
tier 9 cuts. So I think that brings us to the end here. Because I'm lazy and I'd like to get it right, I'm going to use a calculator, which I probably don't need to. 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2, I think is 30. Is that right? 7, 11 to
You didn't. You're
14.
supposed to
Two,
tabulation.
3, 4 fours is 16 plus 3 of those brings us to 25. Yeah, 30. Wow, that actually came out higher than I thought it was going to. I figured it'd be upper 20s. 30 is a good number. We will put this in the hot takes spreadsheet as well. So if you guys, I don't think people use the hot take spreadsheet, but if you'd like to, there is a Google Doc that I maintain that has all the hot take scores for all the ships I've ever done. 30 puts it pretty high. It's on the, I'd say the top third of the scores there. I'd have to look at what other DDs we have in here. In fact, let me just filter this by DDs.
This is it 1 point better than Z42?
It is 1 point better than Z42.
I mean, you
Yes.
put Velos at 32. You have like a natural appreciation for the Velos.
I do.
Johnston's probably better than Velos.
You think
So,
it
like,
might be? Yeah, it's probably right. I think we're close then.
Velos's gun DPM stinks. So, like, I
Yeah.
think your gun rating of 4 on Velos versus this thing is like completely counterintuitive. But
It
that's
could
just
be, but we had different conversations than I'd had a year ago or 2 years ago or
right.
whatever. So, you know, it's crazy. That's
Yeah.
why I say, guys, this is not scientific. OC says, are you going to use an average since 2 of the categories don't apply? No, and I'll say that I'm going to do it like Wargaming does, which will probably ruffle some feathers. But when you don't have radar, when you don't have hydros, you get something else instead. And so, you know, that's where your burst fire comes from, or that's where your stealth comes from, and those kinds of things. When you do have radar, you know, you'll see your, most of the time at least, your DDs lose something else as a result. So I tend to not adjust for those. And again, this is not scientific. You're not expected. Please do not try to use this to compare boats in a way that tells you a boat is good or bad. Boats are not a binary thing. There are so many factors that play into those boats, including your own personal preferences and play style. So I will caution you from treating this as a very scientific thing. This is really a structure for us to BS and talk about boats. If you're on, I see that a few people have logged in and are checking out the hot take spreadsheet. There is the ship summary tab there at the beginning. There's also on the next tab a list of premium or special ships that you can look at and just kind of learn about like the dates the ships came out. There's links to some of the dev blogs. And then there's some other tabs in here that are probably less interesting that I should probably delete.
For what it's worth, GQ Johnny not on your premium ship release list. You missed that one.
No, it's definitely. I updated a bunch of ships yesterday, but I don't have them all, so it's always a little bit behind. But we'll try to keep that posted. Everybody, thank you so much for watching Hot Takes Live with Skada and myself today. Skada, any final words for the people about Johnston GQ Johnny? It's coming up. People are going to be able to get it for free.
Yeah, just stay tuned to Clyde's channel. There will probably be, you know, some news posts on YouTube as those patches with the GQ Johnny stuff come out, talking about how you go about getting that in more detail. And that would be how you get yourself one of these, because otherwise you're not getting one of these Johnstons or GQ Johnnies. They had them out last patch again, and that was they probably won't have them readily available otherwise for a while.
Right on. And then Chunter GB wants to know if you like pineapple on pizza.
Yeah.
All right, there it is. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.